I popped into Oldham the other week to visit some of my favourite places like the Book and Union, Bamboogies, Tokyo's, that burger van that's outside Wetherspoons and it has got no right being as good as it is. Anyway, it turns out they've erected a statue of Annie Kenney, who is my absolute hero. I've got a framed picture of her in my house and everything. I love her because she was one of the few working class women to rise to the top in the WSPU, but you can call them the suffragettes. The fourth of 12 children and a cotton mill worker, Annie was politically minded, meeting Christabel Pankhurst when she was giving a speech on women's rights. I mean, what else would she be talking about? They became close friends and Annie joined the suffragettes in 1905. Christabel Pankhurst described Annie as eager and impulsive in manner, with a thin, haggard face and restless, knotted hands, from one of which a finger had been torn by the machinery it was her work to attend. Her abundant, loosely dressed golden hair was the most youthful-looking thing about her. The wild, distraught expression, apt to occasion solitude, was found on better acquaintance to be less common than a bubbling merriment, in which crow's feet wrinkled quaintly about a pair of twinkling bright blue eyes. This was her friend. Her friend was saying this about her. Can you imagine getting away with that now? Anyway, because she was one of the few working class members they had, the WSPU decided to put her in charge of the Canning Town branch of the suffragettes in the East End of London, because northern and southern poor are notoriously alike, and this is where she really began her mischief. She was sent to prison 13 times. She allegedly had a bit of a thing with 10 of her fellow suffragettes. She turned up to the Chancellor of the Exchequer's house with her mates and just would not stop ringing the doorbell. She incited riots. She spat at policemen. She worked in Bristol for a bit. She was the first person released from prison under the Cat and Mouse Act. So this was when prisoners were weakened by hunger strikes and they were allowed to leave prison to get their strength back, only to be returned back to prison to complete the sentence and just continue their hunger strike again. So she did not mess around with hunger striking. She once gave a speech in Knightsbridge from a stretcher, and she never fully recovered from the damage done, both from the hunger strikes and the forced feeding. Now, Christabel Pankhurst had to flee to France to avoid arrest in 1912, leaving Annie as the leader of the WSPU in London. Christabel became increasingly militant. She was ordering the burning of empty houses and postboxes, and Annie didn't like it, but she authorised it because Christabel was her friend and kind of her boss. So their actions were escalating to a point that it actually became a bit of a relief to her when the outbreak of World War I happened, because the suffragettes paused their campaign to help with the war effort. So as a part of this, Annie spent time in the US, which she hated, and she also went to Australia helping with the war effort before retiring from politics in 1918 when women over 30 were given the right to vote. She settled down, she married a guy called James that her friend described as quite simple, like Annie. Jesus Christ, she is your friend. Is that the nicest thing that you have to say about her? Anyway, she had a child and she died aged 73 of diabetes on the 9th of July 1953. I love her. I think you should love her too.